I'm John Dennis. I'm running against Nancy Pelosi.
We have the most beautiful state and one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving.
I'm gonna catch you when all the cameras aren't around, and I'm gonna you up. I'm tired.
He's the chairman of the San Francisco GOP, and he's running against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Step back, everyone.
All right. Welcome, John Dennis Report. What a day. Oof. You know, I usually have a few topics to cover, but today it's all about the Joe Biden press conference. So come on in, let's get going. I cannot wait to get into this. In fact, the truth is that today a lot of this is going to be a riff because this press conference was all over the map. And before I get into it, let me just make a quick note. So just if you don't mind, please, follow us on Twitter at Real John Dennis, and Instagram, same thing at Real John Dennis. But really important is on YouTube. So Periscope apparently is going away, which in Periscope is owned by Twitter. It's going away as of next week, Wednesday, I guess. It's going to stop. And so we're going to really rely more on YouTube. So if you can go to the John Dennis Report and subscribe there, hit that bell so you can get notifications when we put new material up. We're going to be putting a lot more new material up that is not just me live streaming, but sort of news reporty kind of stuff and some commentary that will not be live, but will be, I think, interesting. So please go ahead and subscribe at the John Dennis Report, and then, of course, on Facebook, the John Dennis Report as well. Wow, what a press conference. So I tweeted earlier this morning that the counterintuitive prediction for the press conference today was that it was not going to be a complete train wreck. And and I had a thought about that first of all, that the reason why I thought that was because Biden is very well managed. They're managing him as well as they possibly can. Let me just take a step back for a second. There's a movie from I think it's the 90s called Awakenings, and if you've seen it, you might know where I'm about to go here. But in the movie, it's with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro is a patient, like he's in a coma, and he's in a hospital filled with comatose people, based on true story, by the way. Robin Williams is a doctor, and he comes up with this idea to give these patients who have this certain kind of, in this sort of catatonic state, this L-dopamine stuff, and he gives it to them, and they pop out of their freaking comas, their catatonic states. And then they give it to them, they give them a little bit more, and these people who've been in coma for a really long time they come out of their shells and they start living again. Well, that sort of reminds me of Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden strikes me as one of these guys who they have to feed, like, whether it's the drugs or the rest or the downtime or whatever it is, in order to manage whatever it is that he's dealing with. So I felt like if they picked this day today, they were either going to have him drugged up or they were going to have him well rested so that he could handle whatever they threw at him. I didn't expect it to be a complete train wreck where he's had some sort of a meltdown. And then so I think I was right in that regard. I don't think it was an utter and complete train wreck. And it was partially because he was managed, but then also his people are very good at managing the environment. Mario, can you put up that picture of the press conference from today and the shot of the reporters? Now, the one of the reporters from today, not that one. No, that's the wrong one. I want to come back to that one in a second. Yeah, this one. So you can see what they did was they managed him very well. There are 1, 2, 3, 4... 10, under fewer than 20, like 18, 19 reporters in the room. right? So the thing with guys like him, and look, I'm not a doctor, but I've seen this before. As your parents get older, and as people around you get older, they get this kind of this kind of problem with senility, or whatever you want to call it, dementia, and then they get angry. Leave that up, please. And they get this kind of senility. So what happens is, if he had to deal with a big crowd of people and they were just tossing questions at him, the chances of angry Joe Biden coming out would be very, very high, very strong, right? So here we have a very controlled environment, a very controlled situation, and a very staged situation. Now, the other thing that you would have noticed, and I didn't put a picture up about this, but if you watched that press conference today, you also noticed that that he had a list of people he was going to call on. Right, he was written down. He kept going, okay, who's next? Well, they weren't even hiding it. By the way, with Trump was just like, he'd point to this person, point to that. There was no list. It's not just Trump, Obama too. Obama would just pick the people. There was no list of people. But with this guy, they really have to control the environment. So let's put the next picture up of what a Trump press conference looked like. Yeah, actually, did I send you just the picture, or no?
You delete.
I did not. Okay, so here's what, by the way, what a Trump press conference looks like. Just so, yeah, there you go. This is what a Trump press conference looks like. They're all, and by the way, this doesn't even really capture it, but look at, they're all yelling and screaming. There's no like checklist of people who I'm going to call on next. It's just whoever gets his attention, and he calls and he takes the shots. And they ask follow-up questions that they were challenging. There was none of that today. None of it. And so, not surprisingly, my most popular tweet from the conference today was this one, where I said, I posted this picture and I said, is there any doubt that angry Joe Biden would have surfaced had he faced this type of press conference? And so far, I put that up a little while ago, and that's been liked like, I don't know, 1,200 times. So, yeah, I mean, from my audience size, that's a pretty good response. So I mean, this was a very controlled situation, a very managed situation, and so as a result, it wasn't a complete train wreck. And by complete train wreck, I would define that as where he has a meltdown, he starts yelling at people, he walks off. I mean, that sort of thing. Now, that did not happen, but the answers and the stuff that he said, I mean, we have just become accustomed to this person, A, being coddled by the press, and B, him, just saying things that are just, patently whacked out. I mean, and contradictory to things that he said in the past. So, so let's go ahead and move over to, okay. Let's just go to let's go to this. This is kind of a big deal. I need to pull this one up right away. So Mario, pull up the that one section of the press conference from today where he's talking about President Xi. And by the way, we're going to come back to this.
Is the wave of the future. Democracy can't function in an ever complex world.
Can you go back to the beginning of that, please? Where he's talking about okay, so let me just give you the setup here a little bit. So the question is about China and about the relationship, and he's talking about, excuse me, I just spilled something here. So he's talking about his relationship with President Xi and China. Now, he said that Obama specifically wanted him to develop a relationship with Xi because it was evident that Xi was going to be president, but it was inappropriate for a president to have a strong relationship with a vice president of another country. Okay, I guess so, whatever. So as vice president, Joe Biden started having this, developing this relationship, which he apparently considers a strong one, with President Xi. So go back again. Start at 4304. Go ahead.
Putin, who thinks that autocracy is the wave of the future, democracy can't function in an ever complex world.
Okay, go back a little farther. Actually, you know what? I might have messed this one up. Go back to 4255.
Very straightforward. Doesn't have a Democratic with a small d bone in his body, but he's a smart guy. He's one of the guys like Putin who thinks that autocracy is the wave of the future. Democracy can't function in an ever complex world.
Great, perfect. That's it. So that's the point. All right. So he's saying that Xi, who he has spent more time with than any other world leader, doesn't have a democratic bone in his body and is for autocracy, and he thinks that autocracy is the way to go in an ever complicated world. Okay, now go back. This is really interesting. Go back to the press conference, the Trump rally, and run that clip. Now listen to this, folks, and we're gonna try and do this side by side. Go ahead, go. Go ahead, play it.
Man, they're not bad folks, folks. China's not a problem.
Allowing China into the World Trade Organization, which he supported, extending most favored nation status to China.
Okay,
which
that's
he
good.
supported.
Thanks. So the point is, when he's talking about they're not bad folks, he was referring to the Chinese leadership. So here he is saying that he knows that Xi Jinping is an autocrat. He knows that, but in that clip, he's saying that they're not bad folks. Or by the way, there are other clips where Biden is saying, they're not our competition, they're not a problem. Meanwhile, he says at this press conference that they're our future competitor and that they want to take over the world. Now, I don't know what's changed. Maybe at that time, I think it's funny and weird that here's a guy whose son, made millions of dollars based on the relationship that Joe Biden set up with the Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund, and then and he's praising them and saying nice things about him. Now he's president. The son doesn't have the same access to those kinds of relationships because of propriety's sake, and all of a sudden they're an issue. I mean, this guy contradicts himself from 1 minute to the next. He said that he doesn't know why people are coming to the border, that he doesn't know why that they would come. They would think that he would let them in. And then in last summer's debates, he said, "Yeah, surge the border. Come on in. We'll let you in. We can absorb all these people. A country of 300 million people can absorb 2 million people a year." And that doesn't take responsibility for the surge at the border. I mean, this press conference was something else. You had to watch it. It was like, they tried to control this thing like a Broadway play. It was totally theatrical, totally set up, and he still barely got through it. It was just, astonishing. Hold on 1 second. I want to take a look at some of your comments here. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, so if you got any comments, jump right in. I'll take as many questions as I possibly can. What else did we put up here? We also saw today that he was talking about, first of all, he couldn't get away from Trump. It was like he was the second reporter, third question he took, and all of a sudden he had to bring up Trump. The shadow of Trump is going to be lingering over this presidency like nothing you've ever seen before. It's like this guy is living in Trump's head, rent-free, and he's living in Trump's shadow, in real life, because he just can't stop talking about it. There were other absurdities here as well. By recent measures, I don't think it was. I think Trump could have done better, and did some great work in terms of bringing some manufacturing back to the United States. At least made it a priority, and tried to change, do what he could to bring manufacturing back, because he knew that was an important issue. He knew it was an important thing that working class folks have jobs. And so that, if you look at the Trump economic history, in nominal terms, it was very solid and very, very, very strong, actually. And here comes Biden, who says, "I want to reward work, not wealth." But if you look at it, if you look at who he's really supporting and where his support source of support comes from, Biden got 90% of the donations from Wall Street. Trump got like 10%. Who is Wall Street supporting? Joe Biden. You know, that's not work. That's not representing work. That's representing wealth. And he's not going to touch things like the favorite of the Wall Street set, like the carried interest tax rate. You never hear when they talk about, oh, you know, these Howard Buffett pays less in taxes than his secretary, which in basic terms is just nonsense. He pays much more in taxes as a percentage of his as a percentage. He pays less because he's paying mostly capital gains and she's paying ordinary income taxes. But having said that, one of the big gifts to Wall Street is the carry interest tax rate, which is much lower than ordinary income. And those guys really don't care about ordinary income taxes because that's a very small percentage of the amount of money that they make. Where they make their money is on trades, and they have an enormous advantage over the rest of us in that they pay a much lower rate. Biden says he wants to reward work, not wealth. He won't touch that interest, that tax rate for the wealthy on Wall Street with a 10-foot pole. It's just another chaotic fib out of Joe Biden. What else do we have today? Let's put this up here. Oh, let me put this up. We have Barbara Lee, by the way, saying that she wants to get out of Afghanistan. Joe Biden brought that up today, and he said that there's a May deadline for withdrawal. But does anybody believe that Joe Biden's going to get out of Afghanistan? No way. Incidentally, he also talked about this message about unity. He was so strong. I'm going to unify the country. I'm going to do this. He didn't take any questions from Fox News. He had a prepared list. You could see him going down the list. He didn't, like I said, he didn't even bother to pretend that he was going to call off the top of his head. And he specifically omitted Fox News. What about unity? You're not going to take any questions from the people who are most disagree with your agenda. By the way, the guy who they have in the White House is Peter Doocy. Is a nice young guy. I almost want to call him a kid, but he's probably in his 30s now. He's a nice young guy. He's very polite. He's sometimes asks some challenging questions, but but Biden specifically omitted him from this press conference, and this very staged press conference. And how does that speak to unity? How does it speak to unity that he hasn't talked to his old friend Mitch McConnell, which also came up in the press conference today, and he gave some scrabbled, confused answer to that. The actions of this administration and of Joe Biden in particular have belied the message of unity from the outset. So this is really becoming a train wreck. And here's the other thing. I just was getting some texts, and one of the reasons why I don't have some of the notes organized as I typically do is because I was getting a text from a Washington insider as the show started, and we had this conversation. Let me read what I can from it. Look at this. Yeah, he got off on this thing. He's like saying that the FBI knew about this guy in Colorado. They knew about the guy in Atlanta. That the Biden administration is cracking down on people who dissent from them, which is terrifying. He also told me something interesting. He said all of these Warren people, Elizabeth Warren people, are in very powerful positions in the White House. There's a little insider information for you. I didn't know that. I thought that it was going to be mostly Obama people and maybe a couple of Harris folks. But apparently Warren and her people have outsized influence in the White House. Let's see what he's got here. Yeah, and we were talking about the Republicans have really got to get their act together because there's a little bit of infighting going on in Washington with Republicans right now that is completely out of place. the analogy I like to use is one of my own. It's like Republicans are having a little knife fight in the middle of a burning barn. You know, we're fighting each other. Meanwhile, they're burning the place down on the other side. So we've got to get our act together. Anyway, so this is again, I come back to the perfect monster analogy. I mean, this guy's, is dead. He's got these dead eyes, and is pushing an agenda where he talks periodically about unity, but offers no unifying. He offers no, nothing in return. Offers nothing to Republicans to join him. There is nothing that he tries to work on. The Republicans would jump in on some infrastructure thing. That's they all love that kind of pork in Washington D.C. But he hasn't even offered to work with the Republicans on that because he doesn't want to give Republicans any credit. And so Biden's like, he's got these dead eyes. And he's just going to, mouth a couple of words about unity and protection and all that sort of thing and getting people together. And at the same time, completely run the far left agenda that his party now represents. And, I hate to even say terms like far left because, I know I'm partisan. I'm the chairman of a Republican Party committee. I'm definitely Republican. But I've always tried to talk more about the ideas that I think are going to actually benefit the country and benefit people individually, make this country a better place to live. But it's pretty evident that the more extreme elements in the Democrat Party are driving the agenda, and Joe Biden is pushing that right now, and he's following that. So he'll make comments about unity and working with Republicans, but what does he have to offer? Is he going to give something up? Is he going to give a tax cut, that Republicans want in exchange for something on the Green New Deal? The Republicans aren't going to do anything on a Green New Deal. They don't want they don't want to touch that. They want nothing to do with it. They know how counterproductive and destructive, frankly, it'd be to the American economy. So where is the compromise coming from? Where is the unity coming from? Biden knows that. So he's going to keep mouthing words about unity and then just keep pushing along this far left agenda. So in any event, I mean, this was sort of as I expected it to play. The left will say, oh, it wasn't a train wreck. And it wasn't a train wreck because it was very tightly controlled on the one hand. But they also, at the same time, when I say the left, I'm talking about the left mainstream media, the CNN, the New York Times, the MSNBC, all the networks. They're going to say, oh, they're just going to report as if there was nothing, odd or goofy about this press conference because they just want to continue to have access to the administration and because they largely support the agenda of the extreme elements and of the Democrat Party. But for those of us who are critical, who follow these things, you can see the guy contradicts himself. In fact, Mario, can you make a point of making that video, that side-by-side video again?
Sure.
Yeah, we'll put that out as one of our releases. Yet another reason to subscribe at the John Dennis Report. So anyway, let's move on to a little bit of different news. We'll have more to say about this press conference, but it was, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting some stuff here. Yeah, well, part of the news here is that I'm going to start doing some more interviews. My friend here in Washington is going to start referring to some folks from D.C., people that we know or should know. And so we'll start doing some more interviews and get a little different insider perspective that we don't get here being 3,000 miles from Washington, D.C. It's one thing to see what's happening and to take the media reportage on what's happening in Washington and make our commentary. It's different when you have people who are on the inside, who are out networking with folks in D.C. and get some scoops from there. So we'll start taking advantage of that. In any event, I guess that's really it for today. Please, again, follow us at Real John Dennis on Twitter and Instagram, Real John Dennis. The John Dennis Report on YouTube, that's the big one. Where that's going to be our main platform, I think, moving forward. And also the Real John Dennis on Facebook. We also have the podcast going, so you can go ahead and pick us up there on Apple and on Spotify. And anything else there, Mario?
No, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. We'll be back, and I'll keep you posted. And hopefully, we'll have some interesting interviews for you in the coming weeks. You're welcome, Boxing Man. We will see you next week. Have a good weekend.